In case for some reason you didn't read the recent chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, or you simply didn't read the disclaimer at the beginning of this video, we're going to be talking heavy spoilers here. But if you don't care about spoilers, in today's quick video I'm going to be discussing some theories in the fandom right now. Of course, none of this is confirmed, and it's just speculation. But I think it's interesting to cover because it shows that Gojo might have actually survived Sukuna's attack. This might be copium, or it might actually be the truth, who knows. We'll probably see more in a few days, but for now it's kind of fun to speculate. And just as a quick heads up too, I did upload this video before, but this is going to be a re-edit of it because it got taken down due to copyright. Although there have been some more foreshadowing things in the recent chapters, so I will be covering that here too, up to chapter 241. I plan on making a separate video about this anyways, so this is a good enough chance to include all that stuff. But yeah, in case you're wondering why all the manga panels and things are censored here, that's why. But I'm going to do my best to show whatever I can without getting copyright striked again. But in chapter 236, Gojo's defeat is still a little bit ambiguous, leaving some room for interpretation. Now, of course, there is a huge chance that he is completely dead here. The narrator even did say it too. But the symbolism in this chapter is pretty interesting. Personally, I'm not going to jump to any conclusions here because even in the last chapter, it said that Gojo won and clearly he didn't. There's a lot of talk around this symbolism here, but I'm going to link two really interesting posts below that basically compiles everything together, so you'll see that in the description. On top of that, I'm going to cover some other things in this video that weren't mentioned in those threads, but basically the gist of it is that Gojo might still be alive. One of the theories supporting the fact that he might be alive is the way he was cut. Now, this theory is a little bit weak because Sukuna would know that he has to destroy Gojo's head if he wants him to truly die here. And if you look in the final panels, you can't even really see Gojo's upper body. It's obstructed by a text box, so Sukuna might have actually destroyed it by now. But basically, if you look at how Gojo was cut, his head wasn't severed. Now, Toji made the same mistake by not going for Gojo's head, which allowed him to survive Toji's attack. But also on top of that, if you remember back to when Yuki died, she did face a similar attack, and after she was cut in half pretty much the same way as Gojo, if not more brutally, it's not like she instantly died right there. She was actually still able to act there. Plus, it's a little bit hard to tell, but it looks like Gojo's smirking at the end of the chapter, acknowledging the fact that Sukuna respected their battle. A lot of people think that Gojo just died instantly, but it looks like he might even still be alive, albeit barely, which means there's a very slim chance he's able to actually heal himself here, assuming Sukuna didn't destroy the upper half of his body right after. But again, that's kind of ambiguous right now. So that's a pretty obvious theory, but there's some other symbolism in this chapter to actually support this. And a lot of it has to do with what Gojo was seeing from his perspective. One of the biggest pieces of symbolism is where Gojo actually is in this chapter. You could see that he's in a terminal of an airport, and this calls back to dialogue from earlier on. Nanami even references it in this chapter, saying that if you want to become someone new, you go north, or if you want to return to who you once were, you go south. And Nanami obviously chose to go south. But it's never said what Gojo chooses here. Now, in this same exact scene, Gojo does reference his own death, so it kind of confirms that he is dead, but at the same time, this could be signifying a rebirth of sorts, whether it be similar to what happened against Toji, or something completely new in general. But another really interesting thing that I see supporting this exact argument here is the fact that one question in the series is still left unanswered. Is he the strongest because he's Gojo, or is he Gojo because he's the strongest? That was never answered. And maybe a rebirth of sorts would be the answer to that. He could finally become a Gojo without being the strongest because now he's lost the throne as strongest if he did lose this battle. This is one of the cruxes of the theory, and these two might actually tie together. All these theories and symbolism about enlightenment, it's not like it comes out of nowhere either. This is something that's been touched upon in the series many times. Specifically with Gojo himself, the name Satoru actually means enlightenment, derived from the word that means that. And obviously there was the Honored One scene, a scene of him supposedly achieving some sort of enlightenment there. But maybe the scene of him being defeated, him coming to terms with the fact that he's not the strongest, and him having to answer the question of whether or not he's the strongest because he's Gojo, or the other way around, this could all tie together and could be leading to some sort of new enlightenment for him, especially with all the similarities between this fight and his fight with Toji. Obviously, Megumi and Toji are related, and obviously while it's Sukuna he's fighting, it's Megumi's body. Plus the fact that Gojo goes into the battle being completely confident about everything, and then losing because Infinity is bypassed somehow, leading to his supposed death. And surprisingly, if you look even deeper, there's even more Buddhist symbolism here. There's a lot of that in the series in general, but specifically in this fight too. So, remember the fact that I was talking about enlightenment. Keep that in mind here. And what I said before about Gojo's name meaning enlightenment, to go even deeper, the word that is actually derived from is a Buddhist word. His name is literal Buddhist symbolism, which again, isn't new to Gojo at all. The Honored One line is a direct Buddhist quote, and that's a scene where he's getting a rebirth. The only reason I'm hammering all this home is because this theory might seem like it's looking too deep into stuff, but I don't think it's looking too deep into it at all. The next part of the theory has to do with Kashimo, who surprisingly enough has some own Buddhist symbolism of his own here. If you look at the kanji in his name, it actually has the kanji for purple and cloud. I promise this means something, because in Japanese Buddhism, there's an idea that when one dies, the Buddha arrives on a purple cloud. And what's the last thing we see in the chapter? It's him rushing into the scene where Gojo actually supposedly died. more Buddhist symbolism of Gojo arriving to some sort of enlightenment. On top of this, I'm sure some others have pointed this out too, but I found some other things while researching this on my own. One small note is that Kashimo's lightning is actually purple. Again, playing into the purple cloud thing, you can see it on this volume cover right here. But apparently this idea of the Buddha approaching you on a purple cloud, it also comes in tandem with something else. In depictions of this welcoming, you could see music being played. So as someone's being enlightened and reaching this pure land, they hear this music. This brings even more symbolism into the picture because, remember this quote from before? This is a funeral for the living, said by the same guy that's symbolizing a rebirth scene. And another small note here while I was looking into this, I found that one of the earliest cases of this depiction, guess what era it comes from? The Heian period. The same time period where Sukuna is touted as the strongest. Plus, on top of that, another piece of symbolism that people are pointing out is the fact that there's a lotus flower shown in this chapter. These flowers symbolize strength, resilience, and rebirth. Also, one of the recent chapters had the title Stupid Survivor. It's a chapter about Takaba, but still. To further add to the cope, this title is a direct reference to another anime's opening. For Bobo 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 Bo. I think I got all the bows there, but that's the name of that show's opening. There's a character from that series that dies the same way as Gojo, but gets revived later on. And I can't really show the full panels here, but the panel is framed pretty much the exact same way. And he gets cut in half exactly like Gojo too. So when you put it all together and look at everything that's presented here in this chapter, as well as what's presented in the series overall, it seems like a pretty intentional implication that there's going to be some sort of enlightenment inbound. Of course, this might not necessarily mean that Gojo actually survived and got enlightened, because rebirth could be literal or figurative. Like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, it could be a rebirth like what happened against Toji, where he didn't literally get reborn. Rather, he discovered a new thing that he wasn't able to use before, and felt like in that moment, he was enlightened, he was the honored one. That's an enlightenment and rebirth of sorts. But there's also the idea that there could be a very literal rebirth here. Gojo could actually become someone new. He could be reborn as Gojo, not the strongest like he was touted as before. Another way this could happen is he could go through a heavenly restriction, keeping his life in exchange for his power somehow. So whether he actually dies or not here, we obviously can't know for certain until the next chapter's out, and maybe not even until after that. But the symbolism here definitely doesn't seem to be unintentional. It doesn't seem to be an accident either. Especially with how much of it is together and the fact that this has happened in the series before, this isn't really too far-fetched to theorize about. On the other hand, if the symbolism does mean something, it could also be symbolizing something completely different. Maybe Gojo truly is dead, and in terms of rebirth, it's not going to be him that's reborn. Or maybe him actually dying is a rebirth for him. That's his true enlightenment that he's trying to reach. Again, we don't know for sure, but it's fun to theorize, and while I can't say for certain whether he's dead or not, I think all these signs pointing towards a rebirth are pretty interesting and compelling. Plus, on top of that, the literal stuff that we've seen in the series too. The fact that Sukuna might have actually not killed him right away, either allowing Gojo to be healed later on or just regenerate himself here. But that's a little more iffy, so that's why I focus more on the symbolism in this video. But let me know what you think below. Is this copium? Is this going to become true? Will it be something completely different? Who knows, but it's fun to discuss. I plan on doing more videos on this series in the future, so thank you for watching and let me know below if you want to see more. See you on the next video.